Coming up, we've worked hard to bring you another great episode. You know what would make my day? If you listen, yes, but you can really make me smile by subscribing. You can go to offthenose.com or on whatever platform you're using right now. They all have that little subscribe button. Go there right now, click that, and boom, happy Kelly. If that's not enough, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Insta and Twitter. You can share the episode with your friends or colleagues. So many options to show your love. But let's just start simple and subscribe today, right now. Don't put it off. You guys rock. Hey everyone, on today's episode, we have a really unique guest, a creativity expert. Nir Bashan is on the show today. He is the author of The Creator Mindset, coming out shortly. And he's going to teach us all how to be more creative. Maybe you thought you weren't creative. Well, guess what? We are all born with creativity. It just slowly dissipates for all these crazy reasons. But creativity is what you need. Creativity is what the world needs today more than ever. So we're going to hear about his cool story on how he became a creativity expert. And we're going to hear about the companies that he has consulted and influenced and how they've been successful and more profitable by being more creative. Let's go.
Gotta get it how it goes now. You gotta take it off the nose. It's off the nose. Gotta get back in control now. Let's stop believing in ourselves. It's off the nose.
Nir, how are you? It's so
I'm good. How are you?
I could have
Thank you
used
for having me.
You know, a few years ago, I was running this company and I think I am a creator mindset, but I could have used you. There you are. You want to get readjusted?
Yeah. 10 seconds.
Yeah, go.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
No problem. I was just saying that, you are the expert on creativity. And so I am so excited about this subject because I think of myself as a creator mindset for sure. And when I was reading the book, I was like, Nir's been inside my head. And
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just phenomenal. And I'm super excited to dive into how much is natural and how much is instinctive in us and what we're born with versus we can learn and evolve and all become creative. And I think that's the point, in your book. But first I wanted to start with Nir as a little guy. And was everybody like, oh, he's so creative? Was that you?
Well, kind of. I mean, not really. You read the book, so it starts off with, being 9 years old and going door to door, washing cards in Los Angeles. And, we didn't do a lot of car washing. We actually did a lot of, taking out the trash and cleaning trash bins and stuff like that. And it really set up kind of understanding that in order to be successful in business, you got to be creative. And sometimes the services that or the product that you provide and the way that people consume it isn't always so linear. People think it's always kind of, hey, this is what I have to sell and somebody's going to buy it, but that's not always the case. So I wouldn't say that I was always creative. I was really interested in music from a young age, and
Okay.
I didn't.
I see the instrument behind you.
Yeah. I didn't, I came to this country not speaking any English, so I gravitated toward music and movies and stuff like that. But, it was not really something that, that I was, good at. So that's kind of my story.
Because you're creative too, right? And I think everybody jumps to the arts, and you're mentioning music because that is how people think of creative. Oh, he's so creative, or she's so creative. They're doing arts and crafts when they're young, and and then they might do children's theater, and they're creative. And as we grow up, and you learned it maybe at 9, but you start to figure out that being creative means forgive the old think out of the box, right? But that's really what it starts to become. How do I become more strategic? How do I, as you put it, not just think linear?
Yeah, definitely. And what ends up happening is we're creative as kids, and as we get older, we get it kind of beat out of us. Kelly, like people just don't support it. It's too out there. It's too wild. It's too, something that's not the stuff of the serious. And what I see today, especially with COVID, and all the turmoil that we're facing as a country is businesses that are creative are doing great. And you look at how many businesses are doing great out there. It's less than 5%? Yeah. And then 95% are struggling. And for me, that's not cool. And we need to sort of inject more creativity into the thought process of businesses on a day-to-day basis in order for people to stay competitive and vibrant and able to ride out all of the change that, is sort of coming. So
are you as hard on people as I am? When Corona first hit, first of all, I think that there's a group of people that just wake up and live in fear, and so they are over here. I would be on the other side, so there is that to consider. But I'm a Squawk Box addict, and you're seeing every CEO come on, and it's like, if I was in your spot, I would be like, not a creative bone in their body. Oh, okay, I like me some Shake Shack CEO. All right, this guy, clueless, and you can just see who is doom and gloom, who is maybe a little too political, and then who is like, let's go, let's pull our pants up and get creative. And there were people celebrating. Starbucks, said some locations were doing better in Corona. Why? Because they didn't even have drive-thrus, and their managers created drive-thrus.
Right. Yeah. There's so much creativity out there if we want to embrace it, but often we don't because we're too scared. Kelly, there's, I run a consultancy, and I work with businesses all the time that are too scared to embrace principles that they know will work. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's wild to me. Why won't they embrace these principles? Fear, ego, reputation. They're worried, if I take, a leap of faith on this, even though I think it will work and I think my customers want it, I'll be ridiculed, or I won't be seen as serious. And the list goes on and on. We have developed an analytical part of our mind so much over the years that we just don't want to think outside of what we're comfortable with. And what ends up happening is we sort of run on a half tank of gas as business owners, as even as in our careers as professionals. We run on a half tank of gas, wondering why we're never getting where we need to go. I mean, you've run companies before. You sort of know what it's like when you don't inject creativity into the organization.
Well, to me, you don't have innovation. You stagnate. And it's also just not a fun place to work.
Yep.
You want to be, I prided myself. There wasn't a meeting where we weren't laughing. And, blue sky and round table and whiteboarding and, all these things were part of everyday conversation. And I see some companies literally hire people to make sure they're having creative sessions. That's amusing to me. And you probably help them do that. So I'm not making fun of that because I appreciate the energy. But in my opinion, that should be part of your culture. That should be part of every meeting.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't do that. I don't advocate that. I want to teach people how to be creative in their organization. A lot of times when I get called in to consult, it will be under the pretense of, hey, great, we're paying you. Make creativity happen. But then,
Yeah.
what I really do is I try to get creativity embedded in leadership, embedded in staff, and so on and so forth, so that they can replicate sort of the creative tenet themselves. And I think that's far more effective than like, we're just going to hire it, because I honestly, we're just going to hire it, is a analytical construct.
Totally. How do you marry the two, right? Because creativity with no eye to the bottom line is not going to work. So you do want to allow for that space to be creative, but also prove it out in the numbers.
No doubt. So I agree with you 100%. And what I do is I advocate for a balance. Kelly, I think we're so far, on extremes these days. We're either here or we're there. And I see it in business too, with the analytics sort of, dominating so many times. And then I see some businesses that are really, really creative, but, they're run by some guy who lives in his parents' basement, and the ideas aren't really getting to market. They're not being packaged. They're not being positioned right. They're not being, prepared, inventoried, and warehoused, and all of that very important analytical thing that bring it together. So for me, what I advocate is not throwing away the analytics, but combining the analytics with the creative. And what I want to see is more businesses embracing balance and a center line of borrowing from both things. What we've done is we're too far on the analytics. Most businesses out there are functioning on cold hard logic, spreadsheet logic, and data. But I argue that spreadsheet logic is something that doesn't give you the complete picture of what's going on. I've seen it. I've run companies. You've seen it. You've done the same. And then the data is useless unless it's information. It's great to get, this many numbers of customers that downloaded this many number of whatever, but that's just really data. Who are these people? What are they doing? What are they doing before, during, and after they're using our product or service? And all those things are constructs of creativity. What I want people to do that are listening to your show right now, Kelly, is sort of bring both sides together, bring it to the middle, and understand that a lifetime of developing the analytics, you're probably okay there. You don't need to further develop that side. You need
No
to
continuing education needed.
No, you're done. You're good. I think what we need to start doing now is to remember how we were as children. We were all creative as children. Everybody's creative. And, we got some pretty impressive people that we cited their research in the book. And, communication skills develop secondary to creativity. That's the first thing. It's who we are as human beings. It's what saved us from getting attacked by that crazy wild beast 3, 4, 50,000 years ago, and it still is what will protect us today. So for me, it's really about uniting both sides and not sort of going where we're comfortable. We're all comfortable in the analytics. It's time to get a little bit uncomfortable in creativity.
So you mention how it starts when we're young. So everybody comes out of the womb with creativity?
Yes.
So how sad.
Super sad.
We slowly become boring as hell and scared and fearful. And does this, I could go on and on about the education system. I think unless you're in private school, my kids have done both, and the public education system has a long way to go. And so you look at the arts and how they've pulled the arts because of funding and so forth. But even beyond what's on paper, everything is so analytical, right? If the schools want to get money, they have to check the box that they did 18 worksheets and 44 whatevers, and there is zero creativity happening as a general statement in public education at the young level, let alone you hit middle school, high school, forget it. Yep. And then, as you reference in your book, the business schools. So schools are a critical part of this.
No doubt. And you and I know we both kind of sat in class or whatever, kindergarten, first grade, and, draw a tree, right? And you drew like a big purple one. I drew a big pink one. And the teacher came by and they were like, Kelly, trees aren't, purple or pink or whatever.
Right.
They're actually, and so we were like, oh, okay. And so it's not, in my opinion, it's not a conspiracy theory or, a tinfoil hat sort of thing. This is really about understanding that we are inclined to shut that side down, and we are inclined to, kind of bury it down because it's not seen as being serious or the stuff of studious studies or whatnot. But the truth is, nothing could be further from the truth. We need that side of our imagination, of our DNA, really, to be reflected so that we can do well. And for me, that's really what I've seen missing in so many businesses today. We have our heroes. We have the Elon Musks of the world and the Steve Jobs and, people doing amazing creativity.
Amazing.
But, those are two people out of how many hundreds of thousands of businesses. We got to get better at it.
You wonder. I'm a big believer, and of course it relates to what's going on in the world right now too, but it does all come back to the home. What kind of culture you have in the home. And then, of course, the schools become your partner in raising your children. And then when you move on to business or to wherever you choose to work or whatever your career is, the leadership then is setting the tone. So it's really interesting. I guess we should interview Elon's mom and see if he was in Montessori school or if he was allowed to color on the walls, or
yeah.
Like.
Yeah, definitely. It really is. It's something that we can do, for your listeners that have children and, work at a school or whatever. It's something that we can do right now. I set out, so I think it's really important to recognize what we're doing when we try to kind of shut off creativity, and even just having a conscious, thought about it helps us reduce, that I don't know, instinct or whatever to shove that creativity down.
Yeah.
Just even knowing about it would really help. I think that, I wrote in the book about how, we're all sort of creative beings, and then throughout life we kind of get it, stifled down. And what ends up happening is, you have a gut instinct that I think largely develops from your creativity, and you kind of stop listening to that voice that tells you what to do. And in my opinion, you get into a lot of trouble. You and I both know we've taken that job with that client that we never should have done because it wasn't a good fit, but we were like, hey, there's going to be a paycheck and we need the money. 100% analytical. And then we were miserable. Yeah, we might have made a certain amount of money, but, wasn't the right thing. So another thing that I think would be great for your listeners that they can enact today is to start listening to that gut. I'm not saying, override it every time, the gut that tells you to drive for 4 hours and not go home because you don't want to deal with something, that I'm not saying to listen to that every time, but there's voices that are sort of, your gut, your instinct is sort of telling you what to do. And I think that we need to start listening far more to that voice. That's something that people can do today.
Do you talk to teachers, or you mostly consult with businesses?
businesses. Never done any work with teachers. I've taught in graduate school and I've taught in undergrad, but I've never done intensive work with teachers or educators. I would
Yeah.
love to.
It would be interesting because they're up against so much pressure. I think that my sister's a third grade teacher, and teachers have been phenomenal for the most part through Corona. You've seen a lot of cool stories, but I just think there's such such a heavy influence on our children's lives.
It's amazing.
Children who are going to become adults who, like you say, need to listen to what's inside, but somebody was telling them not to for so many years.
Right. And it's a shame. And you know what? We grow up, right? And we do the same thing. And we wonder why we're not fulfilled, why we're not happy, why we're not getting where we need to go in our career or business. So, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've had many companies and I've run other people's companies too. And at every step, I've noticed that the people who do well are creative. The people who don't do well are not creative. And so I wanted to be creative. And literally, Kelly, I looked in the marketplace because I wanted a book that would just teach me how to be creative, right? Is there a book out there?
Went into Barnes and Noble and you went up and down all the aisles?
I went up and down. I looked at all the books. Every book on creativity out on the market right now is about why you should be creative. Why should I be creative? Because it's great, because you'll get new ideas, because of innovation, but there isn't one book about the how. And so I kind of put some feelers out there and talked to some agents and in publishing and some publishers, and so I wrote it. And the book that I have coming out on August 4th is called The Creator Mindset, and it's got 92 tools of how. And I think it's brilliant because you can just kind of go through it and take what really resonates with you and leave out what doesn't, and start to implement today these creative things that'll just give you a little bit of a spark, and the foundation for growth. So I think you're totally right. It's something that we're told no so many times that we kind of unfortunately start to believe it.
Yeah. You have so many testimonials, amazing testimonials about the book from a wide variety of people, authors, generals, entrepreneurs, all kinds of different people. And some of the quotes I found interesting, and I wanted to get your feedback on that. One said that creativity is a discipline. Now, I don't know if they're using your words or if they're, interpreted them themselves. So it's a discipline. So once you learn how to, then you have to have a discipline to do it. You got to put it on a Post-it note.
Yes. Yeah. Who said that? I can't remember.
I didn't write down who said it.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's a put your ass in the seat and get to work sort of thing. Creativity is not this, I love art and I love music and that kind of thing. But this is not the creativity that I teach. I don't teach people how to play an instrument or, to sip a macchiato with caramel sprinkles and align their chakras or the 7 tones of Solomon. That's great if you're into it and it helps you. More power to you. But the creativity that I teach is a discipline. You sit down and you do it, and you learn how to develop it by yourself. You learn how to develop it in groups. You learn how to kind of put it together company-wide. This is a practical, sort of discipline that has its basis in trying to take whatever revenue your company is making and maximize profit. I'm a firm believer that free enterprise has done more for societies across the world, not just ours, but anywhere in the world. Free enterprises have lifted more people out of poverty and horrible situations than any other tool that we have. Now, is it the best thing on earth? Like, is it, have we arrived? No, I mean, we can get better at things and constantly, sort of improve. But because I believe so firmly in raising the standard of living of everyone on earth, this is the best tool that I've found. And I've noticed a gap there. We aren't doing the best that we can as businesses. So I feel that the missing component would not just help you and me maximize our profit on our revenue, but it'll help everyone sort of get to where they need to go. That's why I love this stuff so much.
I don't know if you've noticed a difference between public versus private, but from my experience, private allows for more creativity. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, I've got some friends in situations where, they're 75-year-old companies and they refuse to change. So I won't mention names, but
Right.
In my personal experience, it was more creative when it was private situations. Public, the numbers and reporting to the board, and it just became literally all they wanted to talk about was the analytical side of the company.
Right. It's tempting.
Talk about creativity.
What ends up happening is the more eyeballs that you have on the internals, the more eyeballs that you have on the financials, the more you want to sort of make sure that stuff is squeaky clean, and the more you delve into what you're comfortable with. It really is about stepping outside of our comfort zone as companies, as entities, as professionals, and understanding that what we're doing every day is not going to get us to the next level. Listen, Kelly, I tell this to businesses all the time, and it makes them super uncomfortable. Things only last in a certain band of time. If you've had 75 years, more power to you. You might not have next year. Okay. Yeah. You cannot rest on your ass and expect things to get better or different or change. You need to constantly be able and open to creativity, because that will allow for certain tweaks in the market to extend and extend and extend the time that you're viable, vibrant, and profitable. So for me, it really is public or a private company is really all about understanding that you're only existing in a certain band of time, and moreover, you're only existing in a certain band of time that your consumers will allow, your customers. Right. Whether you're a business to business or a business to consumer, it doesn't really matter how you're structured. You are operating under the permission of people who are paying you. And the minute that you stop recognizing that is the minute that you're irrelevant. And people aren't idiots. Sooner or later they won't consume your product or your service, and they'll move on.
Warning.
Big time.
It can just happen overnight.
Yep. And people always gravitate toward comfort. Why? Because when we were, 50,000 years ago, early man and woman, we were in our caves, and there was a little water source over there, and like a berry with bushes over, a bush with some berries over there, and we were like, we're set. Why would you ever change that? And over thousands of years, that's been ingrained. And today we have, the same reaction to, being, sort of attacked by a saber-toothed cat, than we do on a roller coaster. It's insane how far we've come, and yet we still have these, sort of building blocks of humans, ingenuity, sort of reactions to stimulus that have nothing to do with life or death situations anymore, but we feel it the same. So, we've gone public, and, there's been some scrutiny on a Q3 report or whatever, and we feel like we're going to get bitten by a saber-toothed cat. It's the same feeling, but it's so misplaced. We're not going to get bitten. Everybody calm down. It's time to come up with some, creativity around, how do we position it? How do we, let's admit it, we made a mistake. That's a creative thing. That is not an analytical construct. So for me, it's really important for us to understand that there's certain programs in our DNA that push us towards comfort, push us away from innovation. And we need to kind of undo them a little bit and just time out. Relax, let it go, for God's sakes. It's not the end of the world. Let's look at what happened in the Q3, release, and then come up with, somebody say sorry. blow your mind. Imagine that, somebody say, hey, we're going to do a better job next time. We're going to look at it and we're going to sort of make this shift. We've done this adjustment and, free Starbucks to everyone for a month. I don't know. It's things like that really rebuild confidence and allow us to tap into creative potential instead of being so dang scared all the time.
You think most people, that happens when you start to take on responsibility? That fear kind of goes with that?
Yes. We have a self-doubt monster that is perhaps the strongest. When you think of like really strong and like mighty and powerful things, you think of like, nuclear bombs or something. But I think self-doubt is stronger than the biggest bomb, the mightiest army that we have, and it lives right within us. And it's that self-edit that has stopped the world from, getting amazing innovation and amazing results. And part of my mission is to eradicate that. Listen, and it's selfish. Like I'm going to be honest with you, Kelly. Like, I want that doctor working on cancer to not self-doubt what they're doing and go, well, this will ruin my reputation. I want them to go put that report out and spark an idea in another researcher and then connect those three people together that are, and then finally cure cancer. I think we could have landed a woman on Mars by now easily. And, why haven't we? Because there was a scientist or, a researcher or somebody working on something and was like, this is too out there. It's too simple. Nobody will take this seriously. What if I'm wrong? So on and so forth. And that self-editing had led us to not be as robust as a society as we could be. And here we are, and it's selfish to me in a way. I want us to, cure cancer. I want us to do all these amazing things so that, my life can be better.
Right. Well, all of us, right? I mean,
totally.
You another comment before I go on about that. The CEO of Observatory made an interesting comment. When you're in the corporate world, you're always talking about generating value, right? And I'm guilty of it. Two of my favorite words, efficiency and productivity, right? And so he says that's how he thought you generated value. And now with reading your book, Nir, he is seeing that value can be creativity.
Yes. Jae Goodman's a good guy and a very, very smart guy. I was very, very lucky to have him read the book and give some feedback. The nature of business is constantly changing, and the things that were valuable yesterday will not be the things that are valuable tomorrow. Kelly, you know this. You've run very successful companies. You know that you need to stay on your toes. I wrote, in the book, several case studies of complacent companies. I could have filled many volumes of book, and the editor was like, you have to pick the three that you like the best. So I picked three. They're not in any means the ones that I like the best. Are just kind of the ones that were picked for the book. And, if you're not constantly changing and you're not constantly evolving, you're not constantly trying new products, new services, new manifestations of these products and services, you're going to hit a wall sooner or later. And that value that you create is a through line all the way to your customer. They appreciate that you're trying. We're so closed off in business that we don't want to be honest and vulnerable and transparent with people. But the companies who are honest and vulnerable and transparent are the ones that do the best. What the heck is going on here? We need a different way. We need a creative way.
I think that, in doing that, because I'm one of these people, if you want to go for it and if you want to throw ideas out there and if you want to accept that 1 of 10 might work, but I'm still going to put all 10 out there, right? You do have to accept that you're going to get flack.
Yes.
Right?
No doubt. You're going to get some heat.
It takes a strength. I guess when you coach, you're also coaching that side of it. I mean, you've got to be strong. And now, depending on who you are and what level of leadership, with social media, you can get a smackdown real quick. And you've got to figure out how you want to handle that,
No doubt. Crisis and communication, sort of creativity in crisis, relies on a lot of things, and you are going to get into some hot water as you start to innovate and as you start to change things. Sometimes you'll get into really hot water, but not being able to do that. It's really a road that ends either way. So you have to be able to be accepting of the fact that some of these ideas will get shot down and some of them might not perform well in the market. But again, having that transparency and that understanding is essential, because you need to try these things anyway. If you take the road that you're not going to do anything, you're going to go out of business. Do you take the road that maybe you'll try some of these ideas and you're scared? Yeah, maybe a few of the ideas won't work, but it's way better to try something and to do something than to just go back to what's been working before.
That's right. I was a big believer in buy-in. So bringing groups together, I would bring groups together that were unlikely contributors to a given conversation. And some of the best ideas came from those people when you put them in a safe space, so to speak, to be able to throw it out there. And when you get that buy-in, there's a little less fear that it won't work, because you're not dictating as a leader, this is what we're going to go do. I just pulled it out of my ass and it's creative, but we're going to try it. Every once in a while you have I guess you can do that. But I think it's better when you get a group together, everybody has a voice. Of course, you make the final decision and you go, but you got everybody bought in.
No doubt. And that's, hats off to you for having that vision and that courage to do so, because that is really what's going to move the company forward. And when you do those things, you see that you excite people, you create an environment where creativity can manifest in all stages. It's not just enough to be a leader and say, we're going to be creative. You have to get buy-in, you have to get people excited about the idea, and then let them go out and branch it to their departments. And then it's one of those cascading waterfall things where you see a company's vibrancy and joy, really. Kelly, we don't talk enough about joy in business anymore, but we need to, because it's got to be fun, and it's got to be at least something that somebody pursues in a sense of happiness.
Right.
When people are happy, they totally and things. Yeah, and in that happiness, we get people that are excited about coming to work and excited about contributing and excited about having their ideas sort of tried out. And that, I think that's incredibly important. Yeah, you're on the right track. Buy-in is incredibly it's a precious sort of resource.
So have you seen, because I think we all agree, okay, we're born with the ability to be creative, and it kind of gets sucked out of some of us. It depends if we had hippie parents or what school we went to, or if we avoided business school, could have been a good thing as it relates to creativity. And so whatever your path was, you worked for that shitty boss, or you had a boss that was like, let's try it, right? Everybody has a different path. But from your experience working with companies, do you have an example of somebody that you're almost like a proud papa, that they really followed the how-to? Like, this guy was a board. He's a numbers guy, didn't have a creative bone in his body. He is drawing a brown and green tree. That's it. You have a situation that
I did a recent, just before this COVID thing, I did a talk at a disaster restoration conference or whatnot, and I had a guy come up to me afterward, and he was like, Nir, great lecture. It was fun. It was pretty funny, the whole deal. And but I'm not creative. Come on. I get it, but no way. I'm like, really? That's what you came up to tell me? Like, yeah. And to be honest with you, I'm a straight shooter. I was like, okay, what do you got? What's on your mind? He was like, the hour that you were up there talking, the whole time I was just thinking about how many emails I had to get out for proposals. I'm like, dude, you're an analytic kind of guy, you know?
I know
He's
guys
like,
like there. Yeah.
oh, totally. And I said, okay, let's talk a little bit. He's like, yeah. I said, what proposals are you getting out? He's like, what do you mean, what proposals am I getting out? I'm sending out proposals. I'm like, okay, how many of them are you closing? He's like, I got that one. He's like 23%. I said, okay, that sounds pretty bad. He's like, why 23? That's industry standard. I'm like, are you happy with industry standard? And then he was like, no. I'm like, what do you want to close? He's like, well, I'd like to close 30 or whatever. I can't remember the numbers, but it was something like, 7, 8, 10% higher than where he was at. And I said, okay, what do you think you need to do to get there? And he's like, slipped right back into it. He was like, volume, another analytical construct. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so we kept talking. We ended up doing some consulting together, and I started to zoom in on his process, right? A process, analytical construct, but not one looked at creatively. So I started to say, okay, let's look at so he's like, okay, we've been using the same damn form for 10 years. I'm like, okay, is it working? He's like, 23% or whatever. Sign up, so it's working, right? I go, yes, but it's shit. Let's look at it and like really try to get those numbers up, and let's do it from a creative sort of perspective. So I started working with him and trying to figure out like what these issues were, and it turns out that his billing model was like all inclusive, but people wanted to buy a la carte. Why? Because they wanted control over certain line items. So I said to him, dude, let's do an a la carte. Let's just try it. You don't have to like switch the entire company. You've got 100 trucks and 2,000 employees. I get it, but let's just try an a la carte model. And so they went out and they did an a la carte model. Yep. And sure as shit, Kelly, they found that everybody bought the whole damn package, right? So they felt controlled, in whatever they were ordering for a drywall restoration or fire or flood. Sure. They bought just the base package, most people, and then they saw the employees, they liked it, they added on. So he was getting way more value, way more potential for profit from that revenue. And then we started looking at other things, and all of a sudden, he's calling me or sending me emails going, hey man, I'm really creative. I added a new tagline to the website, and this is like a diehard, true and tried analytical sort of person. And yes, it's good that you added a new line to the website, and it's like coming together for him, and his company started to understand that, in the seedlings of failure and even the seedlings of the, 23% that did sign up, well, what about the other people that didn't? And in that is incredible creative potential. Let's go in there and see what we can do. Little tweaks, I found out that he hadn't gone on a house call in like 10 years. He hasn't seen a customer. He's like, Nir, I have people that do that. I'm like, no, like get out, like enough Excel, like let's get on the road. Let's go see some people, let's talk. And he started talking to people and realizing that the way that they're buying his product and services changed, and he hasn't. So they changed the form. It's now like a paragraph, and it's more like a conversation than it is a proposal. And, right. People felt felt an easier attachment to it. So that's just one story that recently happened, but there's lots and lots of these stories where creativity can help people in real, tangible, sort of bottom line ways, but we just have to be willing to try them.
Yes. And surround yourself with great people.
Totally.
So it doesn't have to all be on you if it doesn't come natural. If you sleep with your Excel spreadsheets, I get it. But at least try to surround yourself with people and encourage that kind of environment. And then you spark each other, right? You wake each other
courage. It takes courage. And sometimes that courage means just trying it a little bit, or on a select market or in a select territory. Just giving it a little bit of a shot will help Kelly sometimes in a tremendous way, even if it's not really affecting the financials that much. But smart business people on the analytical side will realize that, hey, hold on, in that territory, that's going up because we're doing A, B, and C. Let's start to replicate these processes across the organization to slowly start lifting the potential. And that is creative, man. That is the stuff that I live for.
And, your nerdy guy can feel like a rock star.
Totally.
Girls think that's hot.
Yeah, right?
See, he'll get all kinds of new attention. One of the things you talk about in your book that I like, well, there's quite a few, but the virtue of listening.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me because even if you don't feel like you're capable of being creative or you're afraid or whatever, if you listen, the creativity will come.
Totally. Yeah, there's and the podcasts are a little weird for me because I don't do this much talking ever. And, I usually listen and I want to find out what people have to say. The subtext of what somebody says and how they say it, how they approach it, Kelly, is gold. And we're so busy like literally when someone else is talking, we're thinking about what we want to say next instead of listening and listen, sort of viewing the social cues and the subtext and all that stuff is gold and incredibly valuable. It's something that your listeners can do today, Kelly. Like they want to become more creative. Okay, I'll dip my toe in what this wacko Nir is saying. It's kind of okay, but I'm super uncomfortable. Okay, I'll start listening a little more. That's something you could do today. And just quiet, listen a little bit longer, listen to how people are saying something and sort of derive value from it. It's an incredibly powerful tool.
Agreed. And when you listen, even if you like your spreadsheets, you can start to hear, multiple people are saying the same thing. That's a trend. Okay, maybe I can jump on that now. So you can bring the analytical in and feel comfortable. So transitioning to what's going on in our world today and all the challenges, I would say we need creativity more than ever. The political system, the choices that we have coming up in 4 months, I'm going to say no offense, but there is offense. I mean, we got, a 74-year-old and a 78-year-old. We got an 80-year-old and a 78-year-old leading Congress. I mean, I don't know how creative you still are. I hope I am at that age, but the fact that we don't switch people out, you can just, start in Congress and die in Congress. And it just kind of goes against what we're talking about today. And I think, you and I certainly, and a lot of people would agree, a more creative world is fresh perspective. It's open minds. It's how you innovate and social change. It's the only way it happens, actually, the virtue of listening, all of these things. So how would you apply creativity to what's going on with racial injustice, and certainly the politics around Corona and the two-party system, and it's just like the same old.
Yeah, the founding fathers never wanted, career politicians. They were hoping that people would come into office after having, some local impetus, honorably serve and then go back to their work. And if you read the Constitution and you sort of, read John Locke and the people who have really sort of created the system, you will see that a lot of it is centered around enterprise, farming or whatever it was back then. But it's centered around enterprise. They really wanted somebody to go work, start a company, or be, a great sort of a professional in the field, do that for a while, gain some popularity, gain an opinion that would help the country on social matters, represent for a while, right? And then stop representing and then come back and go back to work. Literally, that's how it's written. So I think we've gotten a little bit far.
Not go get a $60 million book deal?
Yeah. So it's wild what's been going on. And it just the intent has really changed from how it started. And, here's the thing. I think that with everything going on in the world, I think that the creative values of empathy, the creative values of vulnerability, and the creative values of listening and realizing that, empathy is not just about understanding what somebody else is going through, but really it's about, understanding how they are viewing what they are going through. And I think that, having embedded creativity in what is going on will enable us to have wonderful solutions and wonderful sort of next day outcomes. Listen, what's going on right now in the US especially is, the US working. I mean, people don't like it and it's scary and it sucks, but it literally is working to some degree. Is it the best? No, absolutely not. But
Right.
is it a system? Listen, if something like this were to happen in another country, and I don't want to be disparaging, but I could name a few offline if you'd like. There'd be like people, armed. They would topple the government. There'd be, some military in charge. But it's happening in America, and I think we could sustain these things because I still think that at the bottom of everybody's sort of soul is an understanding that this is a country where these things can kind of happen and not sort of ruin everything.
Destroy the foundation. Right.
Right. And, it's okay that these things are happening, and it's okay that things are getting redefined, because that is what the founding fathers envisioned, and that's what we have today. What I really like about this crisis, if one could even like anything about it, Kelly, is the amazing sort of fast tracking of a lot of deregulation in,
Yes.
especially in medicine. So I have several friends, and there's a heavy section in the book about medicine that are really proponents of regulation and government sort of oversight and stuff like that. But what's really interesting is that tends to be okay, but not in my industry, right? So people want the oil and gas, the energy businesses, to be regulated. But if you're in oil and gas, you don't want it to be regulated because what the regulation's doing. It's driving up costs, and the whole deal. So what we have here with coronavirus, right? We have medicine that's traditionally very regulated, now sort of deregulated to get trials out. And you have a lot of people in medicine going, this is the best thing ever. And what I like about it is sort of a creative outlook, which enables people to understand that, maybe when you're so upset about regulation in other fields, maybe it's time to do some listening and less talking, and let the people in those particular fields, energy, manufacturing, so on and so forth, define for themselves what they can do and how they can contribute when they are less regulated. So what do we have? We have Moderna, we have several other pharmaceutical companies, Johnson & Johnson.
They're all working.
Coming up with a vaccine in record time. Is the vaccine coming? Yes. Is it going to be great? Absolutely. Is it coming sooner or later? I don't know. But this is a direct result of allowing creativity to thrive without some governmental agency stuffing it down, some analytical oversight stuffing it down. And that's a wonderful thing.
Equipment. I mean, look at all these companies that converted their lines, and
amazing.
It's amazing.
Yep. And we got to let people do those things. The populace will be the judge. Believe me, at the end of the day, you can only lie to the public. You can only lie to your shareholders. You can only lie to, your whoever's consuming your product for so long. If that's what you do, you're going to get caught sooner or later. It just is what it is. And people are not idiots. They'll stop buying your product or service. And so you start to have, a sense of honesty, a straightforwardness develop without oversight. You don't need, some governmental agency sort of cracking down on people. You need these companies to be held accountable by the people who consume their products.
Yeah. And, if we can be creative in our voices rather than just angry,
yep,
and try to be more intelligent, and use some creativity, it's okay. There's so much emotion right now.
Yes.
I think it's hopefully starting to calm, and we're starting to have real conversations that
yep,
need to be creative, and people need to be able to step out of their fear and throw it out there.
Kelly, it's all about returning to the center a little bit. We've gotten so stratified on either side of the aisle, on either side of the brain even. We need more centerist thinking. We need more creativity. We need more sort of balance. We've gotten so far out of whack, right? And when things are not in balance, they tend to, create sort of a lot of resonance and noise and just unease. I think we need to move more to the center in everything that we do, and really sort of listen to what creativity has been telling us and apply these things on a day-to-day basis.
I agree. It's my hope for schools, businesses, politicians, but mostly, you look at those sweet little kids, and I know you have children, and I have children, and a lot of the audience has children, and it's like, man, just think in your own home. Are you creating an environment that allows for creativity, or are you judging and correcting and pinning them in and showing them one path to a future when there are hundreds of choices that we all should be able to make? So I think that this is a great topic. I don't think we're done talking about it. So the creator mindset, it comes out in August. Super excited. I wish you the best as it launches, and you've given us a lot to think about today. I hope everybody goes and does some good listening today. They get creative, they shake it up, get out of their head, right? It's totally Friday, so that should help.
Friday helps.
Thanks, Nir. It was great having you on.
I really appreciate it. This has been a great interview, and thank you so much for having me on.
Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.
All right.
Better change up your perspective. It's something new.
Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Remember our little talk before the show? Yep. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, share, all that jazz. It matters, people. You matter. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.